Okay, good morning, everybody. So let's just wait. Oh, yeah, it's 11:30. Okay, there are very few people here. Has the previous class ended?
Sir, we didn't have a previous class.
Okay, okay. Anyway, so let's get started. Um, so, yeah. So yesterday we were discussing the perceptron. So I just took the time to write it just ahead of time so that we can move past this quickly. So what we saw is that there are two versions of it. So the initial version is more intuitive, which is like you are actually doing this perceptron in a most natural way. Okay, but in the second version, what we saw is for all samples which are zero, yi equal to zero, we are pre-multiplying by -1. So what that does is what hyperplane separated originally in this algorithm will make sure that all the points are on the one side of the hyperplane. So that is what it happens. So if we take an example here, so if there are a points like this, okay, and then there are few points like this. So there would be the original algorithm would give you this hyperplane. And when you run the modified perceptron, it doesn't really change anything. All it does is it gives you uh, the reflection of these points over into this quadrant. From third quadrant, both the signs are negative, right? X1 as well as X2 is negative. Both of them will become positive. As a result, they will appear here alongside the positive sample, which is like y equal to 1. Sometimes I call them positive sample, but it's just the samples which are y equal to 1. Okay. So sometimes, this y equal to 0 is written as negative samples, which is like you label it as -1. So anyway, so this is what is the difference between the two algorithms. And a good question to ask is like, why are we studying this modified perceptron? And the reason is very, very simple. It is just easier to analyze this uh, in the modified sense. It will be much simpler. There will not be so many cases. So I will just pause here. If there are any questions from the class on these two algorithms, I will take it up now. Okay, so if that's clear, then let us try to understand what is the. So whenever you have an algorithm, you should also provide what is the goodness of it, or what is the how good is that algorithm doing when you want to compare, right? So you would like to have a cost function. Okay, so we need to have a cost function. So this cost function you have seen before. In the Bayes classifier, this is what was called as risk of a classifier. Okay. So right now we will not see why it is the risk of a classifier right now, but when we study some other types of classifiers, you will understand that this cost function and risk of classifier are actually quite similar. Okay. So for now, ignore that it is a risk of classifier. Let us just understand what is a cost function for a perceptron. So the cost function for a perceptron is basically what you're going to do is you're going to count how many samples have you misclassified. Okay, so you look at all the samples which you have not placed properly. So in the modified sense, so that means you look at all of this, okay, which is less than or equal to 0. So we needed all of the samples to be on one side, or in other words, we needed all the xjw transposes to be positive. Okay, so if there is any ambiguity that is happening, then they all must be in the other side. Okay, so this is we just count all of those. So this is going to be our cost function. So you can think of it as how well the current iteration is doing, right? So this is what you would like to see. So now if I tell you, so question, suppose W star is the optimal, okay? So which optimal for a linearly separable data. So my question is, what is J of W star? What is the value of J of W star? Does anyone know?
Sir, 0.
Yeah, so that is correct. So this is going to be J of W star is 0. Okay. So the answer is J of W star is 0. The reason being, we saw one result yesterday, which we said we will not prove, but it is good to recall that. So the statement was, if data is linearly separable, okay, then perceptron always converges to converges to well separated points. Okay, what that means is it produces a W such that W star it produces such that W star xj is greater than 0 for all j. Okay, in the modified sense. If you look at the original one, then it will be W star xj is greater than 0 if yj is equal to 1 and W star xj is less than 0 if yj is equal to 0. So this is the original and this is the modified. So this result we saw, and I said that we will not really do it properly, in the sense we will not try to prove it in the class, but this proof is available in DudaHeart. If someone wants to understand this, it is there. The reason why this is a little bit surprising result is because we are doing local updates. Okay, so based on one training sample, if you look at this, right, based on one training samples, we are updating our weights. So it's a little surprising that this actually does a desirable thing, right? So that is why this is very surprising. And given that we update one, we are not even assured that that point is going to be henceforth correctly placed. Okay, so even that is not guaranteed. So, and then further it may also misclassify other points. So that is why this result over here is a little bit surprising. Okay, so if you are interested, you could see this. Okay, so now here is a cost function, and I am saying that I should optimize this, right? I should basically, what is my objective? I need to choose W star, which is equal to argmin of J of W, right? So how do you do this problem? So have you seen this in some class? How do we approach this? If you want to treat it from optimization point of view, I have already given you an algorithm which does it. Like from an algorithmic standpoint, how do we do it? We have this. We are doing this, and if it is linearly separable, we are assured of this. But if you were to think of it purely from optimization point of view, how do we optimize a function to get a minimum? Yes, how do we do this?
Differentiate and set the value to 0.
Yes, differentiate and set the value to 0 is 1. Yeah, so that is 1. So there is a slight problem in that approach, because here we are not having a very nice function. This is a very discontinuous function. Okay, so this is going to be a little tricky to differentiate and set to 0. The second thing that we could do here, what else could we do? So differentiating and setting to 0 should have when you differentiate, you should get something analytically pleasing, so that way you can directly get this solution in one step. But here we don't know how to proceed from this. Okay, so we cannot use that approach. What other approach have you learned? Yes, what other approach have you learned? Yes, iterative. In particular, what we have, yeah, iterative is correct. We are going to do gradient descent. Okay. So that's the step we are going to do. So in gradient descent, we have seen that we have to, the next step we need to do. So basically we take the gradient of this function. Okay, so let me just first ask, is there anybody in the class who is not doing optimization course?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Diksha. All right. Anybody else?
I am also not doing.
Okay, I see. All right, so let us just, for the sake of this too, let us try to explain a little bit more. So, so when you have a gradient, Shivam and Diksha, are you familiar with a gradient of a function? What it means?
It is like slope of function.
Yeah, so that is a good picture. Yes. So gradient is like collection of partial derivatives. So when I say gradient of j, okay. So j is a function. First of all, what is a j function from? It is a function from d, right? There are d plus 1, rd plus 1, because you know w transpose x, right? There are totally w0, w1, w2 up to wd. It's a function from rd plus 1 to r. Okay. Now what gradient is capturing is like a analogous notion of the slope. So here what you will do is you will look at partial derivatives of j with respect to every single weights. Okay, so this is the collection of all the partial derivatives, and this together we will call it as gradient. So if you want to think of a gradient intuitively, okay, so what you think of is, suppose this d plus 1 is equal to 2. So let me choose a different color. This is I think, so let us say d plus 1 is equal to 2. Okay, so what it means is there are two dimensions we have. So let's say this is dimension 1, this is dimension 2. Okay, so this is x1 and x2. Okay, so there is a function which is on 2 dimensions. Okay, so this is f of x1, x2. Okay, so this is like rd1 plus 2r, and then let's say there is a shape, some kind of a structure is there. It's like a surface like this, right? So there is a surface. Imagine this is like a waves on a ocean, and then x1 and x2 are the 2 dimensions that are making up the floor of the ocean. Okay, now if you are at any particular point here, let's say you are at this point, what the gradient represents is the direction along which, if you travel, you will have the most increase in the function value. So that means, so if you are in a valley like this, okay, so okay, I cannot. So let's say there is a bowl. Okay, so if you are at the bottom of the bowl, if you want to reach the higher place, so what gradient gives you is a direction in which you have to go so as to reach the top, so that you get the best improvement. Okay, so if you go in the direction of the gradient, it is best improvement. In the same way, if you are at the top, and if you are at the top or somewhere near the top, okay, in the middle, let's say, if you want to reduce that value, you have to go in the negative direction of the gradient. So this is a direction, right? You can all see that it's a vector, right? So gradient j belongs to rd plus 1. Okay, so what gradient descent is trying to do is it is trying to, in this particular example, we are trying to minimize j of w. So essentially what we need to do is we have to go in a direction that, so that it reduces this, right? Diksha and Shivam, does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
so what we need to do is we need to take wt plus 1. We should take the original wt, and then we should traverse, okay, not in the direction of the gradient. If you do plus, then it will improve. Okay, so we need to reduce it. So we will take minus eta times gradient of j. Okay, so this is called as a gradient descent. Okay, so this eta is a small number. You need to tune for this eta. So let us not worry about how to do it. I will give you some assignments so that you can get some practice on this. But eta is a fixed number, or it can change in the loop. But whatever it is basically, the idea is very simple. So, okay, so if you are standing, let us say if you are going on a trek and then you are standing on the foothills of a mountain, okay, you want to reach the top. What gradient represents is that direction which you should take so that you can reach the top as quickly as possible. Okay, so that way you can imagine. All right, so you cannot take a huge step, because if you take a huge step, you may cross the peak and you may go to the other side. Okay, so this eta has to be sufficiently carefully chosen. So given that this is the gradient descent algorithm, what we need to do is we now need to take the gradient of this with respect to each of these things, and that is what is grad j. Okay, so if you take the gradient of this with respect to all of this, what do you get? So you can try this out. Okay, so you had to take partial derivative with respect to w0, w1, w2, and so on. Okay, so if I do this for the step here, you will get wt minus eta times summation. Okay, so there is a negative here. Okay, so when I take gradient, there will be a negative term. So that negative term and this negative term will add up. Okay, and then you will add up all the xj's. Okay, j such that w transpose xj is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so this is what we will get as the gradient descent step. Okay, so now this is what we will get if you use gradient descent. But in the perceptron algorithm, what we had was wk plus 1 was wk plus xk. The modified perceptron algorithm, if we just scroll to the top, you will see that this is what we had done. Okay, so this is the gradient descent. And this is perceptron. Now, in optimization, when you take the complete gradient, okay, the full gradient across all the points, okay, that is called as a batch gradient descent. So this one with the full gradient, okay, we have what is called as batch. Okay, instead, we can also do what is called as stochastic gradient. Okay, we can take the stochastic gradient where what you do is instead of taking the entire sample, you just take just one of the xj's, whichever you like, and then sum it up, where wt transpose xj was less than or equal to 0. So this is called a stochastic gradient. So likewise, this step, right, is very, very similar to the stochastic gradient descent. Okay, and analogously, like the batch gradient descent, we can also have a perceptron which is going to look at all the samples and add up all the samples and do xk. So this is like the batch version of the perceptron. So this is batch perceptron. See, these things, these details, you may wonder why are we discussing, because these things you are going to see again and again when we go to gradient descent, when you go to LMS algorithm, and where many places gradient descent is going to appear everywhere. And in fact, much of success of machine learning is due to this stochastic gradient descent. Okay, so see, I will explain a little bit more, but let me just first finish this. So this is J such that wt transpose this is less than or equal to. So basically, you are going to let's say J. I shouldn't write like this. So I'm going to collect all the points such that J belongs to Sj, okay, Sk, where Sk is equal to all points which are incorrectly placed. Okay, so let me just give a quick recap of what we discussed so far. Okay, so basically we saw what we started off with was the original perceptron, and then we looked at the modified perceptron. The idea of both these algorithms, I hope, was clear. Okay, now what we did was we have to go towards what is called as an optimization view of this perceptron, which is basically trying to measure how good the algorithm is doing at a particular round, right? So you can measure this G of W at every round. So if you do that, that allows us to consider what is called as a gradient descent approach to solving this problem. And that approach is just this. You take at every iteration, you take the gradient, and then you take a step along the negative gradient in order to decrease the value of W, t plus 1. Okay, so this is the negative gradient descent. Yeah, so you're trying to reduce the value. So you're trying to minimize using gradient descent. You're trying to minimize some function. And then when you saw the gradient, what it does is, because the cost function is in this manner, you get all the samples that are misclassified, and you are taking a step along all the samples. Okay, so this is, since you are taking the full gradient using all the samples, this is called as a batch gradient. Okay, you will also see that you can take, instead of taking all the samples, you can just take one sample and take a step along that direction. That would be called as a stochastic gradient, or it will be called as an incremental gradient. This approach is very much similar to the perceptron update that we saw earlier. Okay, so there is some correlation between this incremental step and the incremental step in the perceptron. So likewise, since there is a batch version of the gradient descent, there must also be a batch version of the perceptron, which indeed works. Okay, so this is why this works, again, is not going to be covered in the course, but what you are doing at every round is you are going to collect all the points which are not properly placed, or they are not in the making a positive angle with WT, and all of those you are going to add at one shot. Okay, so this is the batch version. So now this actually finishes this discussion on perceptron. All I would like to say is a little bit about stochastic gradient. The advantage of having an approach, an incremental approach, is you don't really need to look at all the training samples in one shot. So this is very much computationally efficient. If you are able to do something like this, it is much more efficient than taking the full gradient, because then in full gradient, you have to take all the training samples and update. Okay, so this is much more computationally tractable. And the second thing that it allows is what is called as online learning. Again, this is something that we will not cover in the course, but what that does is, if you are seeing data sample one at a time, you can use stochastic gradient to get updates. Okay, so you don't really need to collect all the data samples and then do this. Can on the fly, you can learn things. Okay, so this is why stochastic gradient descent is also useful in online learning. Okay, so I hope all these discussions on perceptron was clear. So if that is all right, then let us move on to the next algorithm, which is called as linear regression. Okay, are there any questions here?
Sir, when we were talking about batch perceptron, we are considering the modified perceptron or the original one?
So batch perceptron is neither the modified nor the original. What I'm saying here is, if you were to use, let us say in the modified perceptron, if you want to do the batch version, what you will do is you will loop till all of them are, this step remains the same. But in the next step, in the loop, inside the loop, what you are going to do is not just take one example which is incorrectly placed. You are going to collect all the examples which have been incorrectly placed at that time and add all of them to WK. Okay, so this is a different step. So batch algorithm is different from either of those. Does that make sense, Siddharth?
No, sir.
Okay, so here, this is the loop that was here till all of them are correctly placed, right? This you understand, right? Modified perceptron is clear to you, right?
Yes, sir.
So now what I will do is I will create, instead of this in the batch version, what I will do, I will create a set SK, okay, which is equal to set of all the training points such that Xi transpose W is less than 0. I will collect all of them. Does that make sense? I will collect all of them in one shot. Then what I will do is WK plus 1 is going to be WK plus all the Xi's, okay, such that I belongs to SK. I will collect all the points and I will update at one shot. Does this make sense now?
Yes, sir. Sir, so this method can only be applied to the modified perceptron. That was my question.
Yeah. In the other one, then what you need to do is in the other algorithm, what you can do is SK. You can store either Xi. So you can store this SK. You can have it as two steps. SK1. Okay, this is all the Xi such that Yi is equal to 1 and Xi transpose W is less than 0. Okay, and then you can have SK2, which is minus Xi. Okay, such that Yi is equal to 0 and Xi transpose W, okay, is greater than 0. You can do these two and then you can add them. Does that make sense? You can have a batch version for even the original.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions? All right. So let's move on to the next topic. So now we are going to discuss the first problem, which is see what all that we have been doing so far was a classification problem. Okay, so classification is what? So basic, you have X, which is your set of features, and then Y was either 0, 1, two classes, or Y was -1 +1. We have focused only on classification problem. Now, what we are liking to do is we want to do something more. We want to learn the function. Okay, so what that means is you have X, which is set of all features. Okay, and then Y is actually something. Y belongs to real number. Okay, what you would like to learn is f of X. Okay, which is equal to Y. So you would like to learn. We would like to learn f of X. Okay, we would like to learn f of X as a representation for Y. So example of regression problem would be something that is very commonly given is house prices. So there is price on one axis, and then let us say area on the other axis, right? So this, you would see these examples in many places. So let's say the area is measured in square meters and price is measured in rupees, right? So given that there are more area, it is more likely that the price will be high. Something which is not so big will have less price. Like this, you can have a function like this, and then there will be some kind of variance, because some localities are more expensive, some localities are less expensive, and then there are some, and then what you would like to learn is a single function which probably is best representing the house prices. And then given a new house which is of this area, you can predict, okay, that most likely the house price should be this. Okay, so this is the regression problem. All right. So you would like to learn a function which goes from d dimensions to r, like this is your feature, to r. Okay, and so you would like to learn this for Y. Okay, so now how do you measure whether there are, let's say I will give you two functions. This is one, and let's say I will give you another function which is something like this. So if I were to ask you which of the two is better, how do you say? What will you say? So this one, let's say this is f1 and this is f2. So we need to measure which among the two is better, right? So we would like to have some kind of an idea of a goodness of it, how good these functions are fitting. So given this particular example, which one do you think is a better function?
Sir, the red one.
Yeah. So what you have intuitively done is you have seen how far each of these points are from what is supposed to be predicted, and then you have said, okay, this is better. So that is what we are going to do. Okay, so we are going to look at a cost function j of w, okay, which is equal to half. Okay, so this is my function f of x, f of xi, okay, I going from 1 to n, this minus yi whole square. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. So you have your training samples which are given as xi and yi. Okay, and I'm trying to minimize the error in at least the sample that is given. I'm trying to minimize. Okay, so you will see there are some issues around this, but for now, let's just focus on this particular thing and then try to understand what is happening here. There are some issues which we will slowly develop as we discuss, but intuitively, at least, this makes sense. Okay, so this is called as least square errors. Least square error. Okay, so this is what is the regression problem. Now, since we are discussing linear models, one thing is clear. So we are trying to learn linear models. So let us do linear regression first. Okay, so let's start with linear regression. So in linear regression, f of x will be given by some j equal to 1 to d, as before, as we have seen already in perceptron. It will be like wi xi plus w naught. Okay, now this, if you want to write it very concisely, you can write it as w transpose x plus w naught. Okay, or if you want to do the augmented representation, then you can write it as wx is equal to w transpose x tilde. Okay, so whenever we discussed, right, I did not bother to put x tilde everywhere. So if I am not mentioning w naught, the idea is I am assuming that I am doing the augmented notation. Okay, so don't get confused in these silly things. Okay, but the idea is very, very straightforward. So what we are trying to say is that in the regression problem, the linear regression at least, given that there is a cloud of points, the linear regression model is trying to predict a single line. Okay, even though this doesn't look like a line, I mean to draw it as a line. Okay, so we want to learn a single line which best represents the variation in the data, and that is given by w transpose x x tilde. Okay, so now this is what it is, and you can also use it to learn your classifier also. Okay, so that is called as linear regression for classification. So what that means is, suppose if I use so there is no restriction in the discussion here. The cost function yi, the y's have to be in R, right? So if I apply linear regression where fx is given by w transpose x plus w naught, I can use it to also learn y, which is belonging to either 0, 1 space or -1, 1. I can use, since I can use f of x to represent any real number. In particular, I can do it for 0, 1 or -1, 1 as well. Okay, so in the further discussion, whenever I am talking about linear regression, the idea that you should have in your mind is that you can use it to learn either a function, or you can also use it to do classification. So this is different from what is called as a logistic classifier or logistic regression. Okay, that I will clarify when it comes to that. I will explain what that is, but don't get confused with that, since if you have seen it already. So this is going to be a different thing. But the idea is, since we are anyway talking about linear regression, we can also use the same linear regression approach for classification. Okay, so what is it that we have understood so far? So we have been given a cloud of points, and there are some features x, right? So this could be in d dimension. What we are trying to do is we are trying to learn the function which is going to be a hyperplane, and we want to find out that hyperplane which is going to minimize our least square error. We want to find the hyperplane that minimizes the least square criteria. Okay, I hope this discussion up till here should be clear to everybody. So if not, please ask me now.
Sir, I just have one doubt.
Yeah.
We are calling this linear regression because it's linear in W's, right?
Yes, yes. So that is again a good point. So thanks for bringing that up. So if we were to do, for example, something like this, wi transpose phi of x plus w naught. Okay, so this is also linear. Okay, because it is linear in W. What we are trying to learn is linear in W. So who asked me this?
Sir, Siddharth Shah.
Yeah, Siddharth. So Siddharth, if you see, if you are given x, right, phi is also fixed. Okay, so all the phi's are fixed. So phi 1, phi 2, all the way till phi d, they are fixed. These are fixed functions. Okay. So why would you do that? I can give you an example in perceptron. Somehow I didn't discuss this, but see, perceptron can, if you have seen, like you have understood, I think, is that it can separate points of this form, right? If there are points here, and if there are points here, it can separate this. There is no problem. But if the points are something like this, so your positive points are all here. Positive in the sense y equal to 1 points are all here. And if your y equal to 0 points are all here, right? Then you cannot use perceptron on this data, right? We cannot use. So this is your x1, this is your x2. So what you do is you can actually put this in a higher dimension, which means I will create new features. Okay, my original features x was 1, x1, x2, right? This was my original feature. I can create a new feature, which I will call it as z, which is actually 1, x1, x2, then x1 square, x2 square, and x1, x2. So I can create this. Given every point, I can create a corresponding z. Okay, and then I will run perceptron on this modified space, and then whatever w I will get, right? W for z, whatever I will get. If I draw that decision boundary on this, okay, if I try to find out what is the line that in that higher dimension, whatever is the line, if I draw it with respect to x1, x2, what you will get is a separating plane, a separating line like this. Okay, what was not originally classifiable by a perceptron, okay, directly in the original space, that is now classified in the higher dimension. Siddharth, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Why is it? Because, you know, this function, if you see, all the points in this region are having a property that x1 squared plus x2 squared is less than some k, right? So that kind of a feature appears here. Okay, so you can think of, even though this is like a square, essentially for the algorithm, these are fixed numbers. It is not really that they are getting squares. It's not that they are non-linear as far as learning W's are concerned. Okay, so that's why it's still linear. What would be not linear is if you have f of x, which is equal to sine w0 plus cos w1 x1. If I try to do something like this, this will be something which is not linear. Okay, so whenever we talk about linear, the idea that is always important is that it is linear in W. Okay, yeah. So any other questions? Okay, so let us continue. So again, I know that those of you who have done machine learning, optimization are going to see some of the things which have already been taught. But for the sake of the two students who have not attended, I will just go through it once again. So now, what is it that we would like to do? So we want to learn regression, which is like what line best learns for regression or for classification. I want to find a single line which best approximates my y, right? And I have a j of w. So now Rohit way back had told that whenever you want to solve a problem, what you can do is you can either differentiate and set to 0, or you can take the gradient. Okay, so that is what he had told. So what we will do in the first thing is we will first take the derivative and set it to 0. And in the second discussion, we will do the gradient method. So both the methods we will do. Okay, so first is the analytical solution. Okay, so this is the first thing. And today we will finish this analytical solution, and in the next class we will look at the gradient approach. All right. So now each training sample, right, xi, each training sample is a d+1 dimensional matrix. Is a d+ dimensional one vector. The first one is the spurious one, right? I'm told that this is an augmented space. So you have 1, then you have xi the second, like all this, right? xi1 and xi d. So these are the d features associated with every xi. Okay. So now what I will do, I will write this as this. This is the ith feature. Okay. So this is my xi. Now what I will do is I will construct a matrix A, which is having each of these training samples as a row. This is x1. So this is the first augmented training sample. Then you have x2 and all the way till xn. So this is my n training samples. Okay. Now, suppose my weight vector is w, right? So this is w0, w1, all the way till wd. So if I do aw, what do I get? So this is, first of all, let's try to understand the dimensions of each of these matrix. So what is the dimension of xi? Can someone tell me what's the dimension of xi?
D plus 1.
So D plus 1.
D plus 1 rows and 1 column, right? And this one is also D plus 1 cross 1. What about this?
N times D plus 1.
Yeah. Okay. So if I multiply A and W, what will I get? As
N
dimensions
times
what?
1.
Yeah. So it is, if I do this, I will get n times 1. Okay. As dimension. So n plus 1. So basically what I will have is something which is like this. Okay. So this will be xi transpose w, x1 transpose w, x2 transpose w, x3 transpose w, all the way till xn transpose w. Okay. Now what we wanted, if you see, was here, right? So going from the jw, so let me just try to make it very clear. So what jw we had was f of x was summation, right? Summation f of xi minus yi whole squared. This is what we had, I equal to 1 to n, right? So this is, if you really think about it, this is going to be aw minus y. Okay, the norm of aw minus y is what is going to be this. So jw is going to be half norm of aw minus y squared. Okay, so what is y? Y is y1, y2, all the way till yn. Okay, so this is what jw is. Okay, I hope this is clear to people. So if it's not, I can explain more. And we have already seen how the norm can be obtained, norm square can be obtained. So that actually becomes jw is equal to half. Okay, this is what it is. Right? So now in order to, so there were two approaches which Rohit told, right? So he said in order to find the minima of this cost function, what you have is two approaches. One is set gradient to 0, right? So you take the gradient of this and find out which values of w. Okay, so basically what that means is find w star such that gradient of j of w star is equal to 0, and then that is my optimal. So that is what we are going to do, and that will give you an answer in one shot. Okay, so if I take the gradient of this again, for those of you like Diksha and Shivom, so there is basically in this book, right? So there is an appendix which talks about taking gradients for matrices. So let me tell you what that appendix is. So in Bishop, if you see, I think, yeah, so if you see appendix C, okay, so you can see appendix C. This talks about how to take gradients for matrices. So these are all matrices, right? So how do you take the gradient with respect to each of these things? So you can try out to do for small examples, and that will also help you. But any case, you have to believe me that gradient of J of W, this is going to be, so this is roughly you think of this as taking gradient of half x squared. If you take derivative of this, what will you get? You'll get x, right? So something like that you have to try to think. All right. So this will be, the gradient of this will be A transpose. So the variable that we are taking gradient with respect to was W. So, okay. So this will be, so there is a two terms, since this is coming twice, there is a square here. So that gets removed by this 2. So what you will have is A transpose times AW minus Y. So this you can work out at your own time, okay, and you can see that this is what it is. So now following the approach, what we need to do is we need to find a W such that A transpose AW minus Y is equal to 0. Or in other words, A transpose A W is equal to A transpose Y. Okay, and or in other words, Y is equal to A transpose A inverse A transpose Y. So this is going to be your optimal solution. So this you can directly do because you know A's. What was A's? A was collection of all the training samples put as a matrix. Okay, so if you take A transpose A, okay, so what is the dimension of A transpose A? So A's dimension we know, this is n cross d plus 1. A transpose therefore will have a dimension d plus 1 cross n. So A transpose A has the dimension d plus 1 cross d plus 1. Okay, so this is the dimension. So it's a square matrix, you can take its inverse. Okay, and then A transpose Y will be a vector in d plus 1. So this is, if you are not convinced, we can do that. So this is d plus 1 cross n, this is n cross 1. Okay, so this, when I take the thing, it will be a vector in d plus 1 cross 1. So you can take its inverse, provided the inverse exists for A transpose A inverse. Okay, so this A transpose A, so next thing is Y is A transpose A invertible. That we will see, invertible. But if it is invertible, we can now use this analytical closed form to solve for W, and that W will be such that it will try to, you can use it for two things. Either you can use it to learn for regression, or you can use it to do the classification. Okay, and this is also called as a least square solution. So that also we will talk about. Why is A transpose A invertible, and what is least square solution in terms of in linear algebra. So these two things we will discuss now. So far, are there any questions? So does everybody understand how do we use linear regression using this method? Can I just quickly check if you follow the discussion so far?
So could you explain the differential, the gradient part again, kindly?
Okay, so is this okay? Why this is the same as? Do you follow why this is same as this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So after that line that said gradient and J star.
Yeah. So if I'm setting this to gradient to 0, this, do you not follow why this has come from taking gradient of this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you really want to do this correctly, right? So what I recommend you to do is you try out on a very small example. Okay, so you take this as W1, W2. Okay, so your W as this. Your A, you can try it as A, B, C, D, for instance. Okay, and then Y, you keep it as Y1, Y2. Okay, then you actually do this multiplication, you'll get some expression. All right, and then you try to take its, once you get a, what is this number, Rohit? What do you get this? If I completely work out everything, what will you get? You will get a single number, right? It's a number, right? Yes.
Yes.
So you'll get a single number. So you, for a single number, which is a function of both W1 and W2, you can take its gradient and write it as a, this left hand side, you will get this. Okay. Then you try out on A transpose AW minus Y, you try out and see what this gives. Okay. And then you will find that they will give the same thing. But what I was trying to tell you is like, See, you can think of this as a something like taking the gradient of 2x minus, so let's say ax plus b into ax plus b. Suppose if I were doing this, right? So if this was what it was. So how do you take like derivative with respect to x of this, right? So here you have to take, this is ax plus b whole squared, right? So this is like half into 2, right? Ax plus b. So that is something like this, that what you have got. And then there will be a term which is coming because I'm taking the derivative of the chain rule I'm doing, right? So that a term. So that will give us this. So that way also you can think of this. So that way you can do this. So there are many of these matrix derivatives will become simple if you think of the corresponding simple derivatives. Okay,
Yes.
Rohit. So this is kind of similar to that, right? Don't you see that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so you just try to do that. Yeah. So now
And sir, towards the end, the boxed equation, can't
Yeah.
you simplify it further by taking A inverse A transpose inverse times A transpose Y, and then the A transpose inverse A transpose get cancelled out?
sorry, A transpose A inverse is one single number, one single matrix. So that is what this is. And then A transpose, you cannot, these two are not, this is not a symmetric matrix. A transpose is not equal to A, right? So you can't do anything. So A inverse, so if I take inverse, so what if I take inverse, it will become A inverse A transpose in, oh, like that you're saying.
Yes, sir.
No, you can't do that. It's a good question that you're asking. Okay, because if you do that, I think you lose. So this whole unit as a whole, I am taking inverse. Very good question, actually. So why can't we take A transpose inverse? You tell me why we can't take A transpose inverse. See, sorry, you asked me the question and I'm asking you back. But if I'm asking you, you must understand that it's a simple answer, right? Otherwise, I will not bother you with asking. What is the dimension of A transpose?
1 times D plus 1.
No. A's
Oh,
dimension.
right, sorry. D plus 1 times N.
Yeah, so it is not a square matrix. You cannot take its inverse.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So this is interesting that you bring it up. But yeah, you can't. But if it were square matrix, then you could do it, and then everything gets cancelled, and then you have A inverse phi. Okay. So that unfortunately is not how it is. But anyway, so that's interesting. Okay, so why is A transpose A invertible? That's the next question. I'm assuming nobody else has any questions. Are there any more questions? Can I quickly check in the chat? Yes, is it clear? Except Siddharth Shah, nobody else has anything to say. Is it clear?
This answers the first question, that why is A transpose A invertible? Because the dimension becomes a square matrix.
Yeah, but being a square matrix is not enough to say it is
The determinant
invertible.
has to be non-zero.
Yeah, so that is what we have to show next. Okay, so let's do that. Let's finish these two questions one after the other. So first thing is, why is A transpose A invertible? Okay, so first thing is we have to understand a little bit on why A transpose A is invertible. So A's dimension, again, I'm telling you, it's very, very repetitive, but we have to do this. It is n cross d plus 1. Okay. So first thing that I'm saying is n should be much greater than d plus 1. So what I'm trying to say is we should be learning fewer parameters than the number of equations. So this makes sense. Otherwise, learning is not possible. Let's say learning is difficult, right? So we cannot have more features to learn, more like we are doing so many measurements. Let us say I will do, for a simple problem, I will do 100 measurements and I will give you only 2 training samples. Okay, so that's not possible to really learn anything, right? So I need to have multiple training samples, and the number of features also cannot be too large. That is when I can do something. Otherwise, this is not possible. So this is the point number 1. So what you have, A is actually what is called as a tall system. If you write A, it will look like this. A is a tall system, or it is also called, in linear algebra terms, it's also called as over determined system. Okay, so if I am having a system like this, and if I ask you AX is equal to B, okay, this is a difficult question. So when you have, so you have AX equal to B, essentially what I am saying is, are there, so A, if I write it as column vectors, A1, A2, all the columns like this, AD plus 1, okay, is equal to B. What I'm asking is there some linear combination of x1 to xn, xt plus 1? So is there something like x1 a1 plus x2 a2 plus xt plus 1 ad plus 1, which is equal to B, right? I'm asking this question. What is meant by solving a linear equation is this, right? But whenever you have a tall system, there is no guarantee that the system can be inconsistent. Okay, so system which means you cannot have, there doesn't exist a x such that ax equal to b. It's more likely that you will not find an x which is equal to b. In such a case, what we are interested, if you cannot find an x which is equal to b, at least can we find an x such that the distance between this, whatever the y, so let us say if you cannot find this, at least can you find an x such that this is minimized. So this argmin of x. Can I find an x, which I will call it as x star, such that this happens? Okay, so this is called as a least square solution. And the idea is you are going to try to find the best approximation for B in the column space of A. Okay, so that is why the solution that we have proposed, this also appears in the least square solutions in the linear algebra things. Okay, now for a tall system like this, what we have is the rank is going to be d plus 1. Provided rank is going to be d plus 1, provided no two columns like this column, let's say column 3 and column 7, provided no two columns are linear functions of each other. Two columns are linearly dependent. So what that means is if your features are such that you don't have any feature which is a redundant feature. So that means no redundant feature. So let me try to explain when redundant features will come. So if you have, let us say, area as one of the features. Okay, so you have your X. There are several things here. You have number of bedrooms. Okay, you have area. Let us say you have area in square meters. Then you have area in square feet. So this is an example where there are redundant features. Why? Because area in square meters is some constant times area in square feet. So this is an example where features are linearly dependent. If you don't have features which are linearly dependent, the rank of this A matrix will be d plus 1. Okay, so it will be a full rank matrix, not full rank, but it will be a d plus 1 rank. Let's say that it's a d plus 1 rank. Or when you do A transpose A, this will be full rank. Full rank, okay, and therefore invertible. Okay, so all you need to ensure to have the inverse of this is that this has to be a full rank, and for this to be full rank, all you need to ensure is that there are no redundant features. By redundant features, what we mean is you cannot represent one feature as some linear combination of other features. All right. If there is a feature which is x1 into x2, that is fine. That is not linear. Okay, but if there is a feature which is x3 is equal to x1 plus x2, that is linear. So does that make sense? So this finishes the approach. So this is called as a normal equation approach to solve for regression. These are all called normal equations. I have no idea why, but yeah, anyway. So let's just quickly go through what we have discussed today. So we started with the first thing, which was the perceptron, and we saw the two versions of perceptron. We then looked at the goodness of fit of a perceptron, and we found out how do we use gradient descent to find the perceptron solution. We saw that there are two versions, and this discussion is important because you will see something similar appearing even in regression. You will see something similar appearing in other topics as well. Okay, stochastic version and the batch version and so on. And then we looked at first regression case. So you can use this problem for learning a function which is regression, or you can use it for even doing classification. What you have is the cost function is going to be a least square error. You're trying to minimize the least squares error, and that function we will call it as the best fit. And amongst all choice of functions, what we first restricted ourselves to was a linear function. And linear also, of course, includes your own features which you may create like this. All right. And then we saw how do we get, using the first approach, which is to set the gradient to 0, how do you get the best W? And this is what it was. And we also saw that this A transpose A will be invertible, provided there are no redundant features. Okay, so this is what we did today. If there are any questions, you may ask now. Otherwise, we will stop here. So thank you, everybody. Have a good lunch. So tomorrow I will not hold any class since your midterms are coming. And next week, I will not hold classes even on Thursday and Friday. So that way you have more time to prepare. All right. And we will compensate for this after midterm because we need to have that. And hopefully we will finish earlier than the final exam so that you have more time. All right. So thank you, everybody. I will hang back for questions.
Thank you, sir.